When you come to Werribee Open Range Zoo, you normally see these guys from the safari bus, but today I'm lucky enough to be standing right at their level. Here they are, the world's tallest animal, the giraffe. It's pretty incredible. And this is Dom, he's incredible too. Dom, Life Sciences Manager of the Savannah. What's it like working with these beautiful boys every day?
It's just stunning. It's so awesome. It's so special. They're so unique. They're a quintessentially African species. They're the tallest mammal in the world. Although they're so tall, they have the same number of neck vertebrae as a human, obviously just a whole lot longer. They have a heart that weighs 11 kilograms. When they're born, they're taller than the average person. They've got unique coat patterns. It's almost like a human fingerprint. No two giraffes have the same coat pattern.
Life is pretty easy going for the giraffes who call Werribee Open Range Zoo their home.
We try not to dictate exactly what they're doing at what times. We want to give them choice. We want to let them decide, oh, I'd like to go here, and then I want to do that, and then I'd like to come over there. And they just know every now and again, we might come in, give them a bit of food, give them a bit of enrichment, do some training, and that's just a really fun thing going on. But otherwise, they're just busy. They're doing things. They're going all over. And then at the end of the day, it's like, well, let's head back. Busy day, I'm tired, and let's go for a sleep.
There have been some pretty big changes for this unique species at Werribee. At the end of 2023, the zoo's 4 older giraffes were joined by 3 new kids on the block. Youngsters, David, Wayo, and Jesse. The keeping team took their time introducing the newer group to the much taller veterans.
We had 3 younger, much smaller giraffe arriving. We had our 4 very big boys, one of whom is well over 6 meters tall. So we had a very well staged introduction process. But I'm happy to say they got on so well.
The now 7 male giraffes are part of a bachelor herd, a common occurrence in the wild. These males' genetics are already well represented in a carefully managed global breeding program.
We have a significant conservation and breeding program throughout Australasia, and that is very carefully managed. And part of that is ensuring that we have breeding in various institutions to ensure we have good genetics and we're able to showcase giraffes and what they're all about. But because of that, it does also mean that we do get a lot of males in certain facilities. So what we've done is we've agreed to house the surplus males in our facility where they would be in a bachelor group similar to what they would be in the wild. So we're not going to be a breeding facility, but we're going to house this really awesome bachelor group where they can all be together and getting on very, very well.
The keeping team are hopeful that this younger galloping group will eventually take part in healthcare training, just like their well-experienced herd mates.
Training and the work we do with adult giraffes, it's really important for us. We can start off with our adult males with basic behaviors like target training, which is where you might hold up a target stick and the giraffe would touch its nose on it and it gets a treat. And then we can progress onto other things like taking bloods or taking x-rays. And all of those are really important tools, not only for the keepers, but for the vets as well. If we need to take a blood sample or we need to take an x-ray, getting used to the training and the conditioning. So as and when it does happen, it's not a scary experience.
So 7 months in, here they are all together. How are the new ones settling in?
Oh, they're doing so well. You can see just how well they've amalgamated with our older males, and they've just settled in so well. At first we were a bit worried that the younger boys were going to be a bit intimidated by the older males, but as it turned out, it was the big boys that were worried about the new ankle biters. They're doing so well and getting on really well. At the moment they're just waiting for their afternoon snack and they're waiting for the keepers to come down with that. And we've got ostrich in the background and all of the animals down on low savannah that you get to see on the safari route are just getting on really well.
Thanks for watching. If you want more Zoos Victoria content, click the subscribe button now.